Hello, Elias. Hello, Albin. Nice to join us for this webinar with our companies. This is a new way for us to interact with our companies. It's a new thing for us. It's a very interesting way to connect with our companies and to bring information to our companies. We are now changing our lives since 1 month ago. More or less, our lives change a lot, and we are taking new responsibilities, new challenges, and new ways of living and new ways of doing business. Our business changed a lot. We have closed some factories, others are struggling to keep opening. The industry in Spain and Italy has being closed mandatory by governments. We are some of our companies are still working with some difficulties, serving their clients, and we are looking for it. So COVID is a virus, and it changed a lot our business. Doing this, we are trying to promote new initiatives. This way, we are starting this series of webinars for our companies. This series of webinars will be we'll start with you, but we'll come up with a lot other webinars with other interesting speakers from all over the world. We are promoting these webinars with international players that can bring new knowledge for our companies, knowledge that we are expecting can improve our competitiveness in the international arena. The webinar today will be focused on promoting the capacity of communication of our international companies, our industrial companies. So we have a strong position as industrial players. A lot of thoughts are being made about how a brand can communicate internationally, but we also suggest and think that communication is a topic also for industrial companies. And today we want to try to bring your insights about how our industrial companies that deal basically on business-to-business models can communicate themselves and how you can help us to do that. So Elias has worked with H&M for several years. He has been working in Portugal. That's why we met some years ago. And Albin has launched a brand some years ago, and a brand that is well known by some of our members. Has Axel Arigato is mainly manufactured here in Portugal with some of our companies. So you are well known about our industry, and you are well known about how to work internationally. So we are here trying to learn something from you. We also believe that the digital world is not only for brands. Industrial companies have to have a big presence in the digital world. Until now, industrial companies mainly communicate themselves in international fairs and by their personal relations. So anyone looking for manufacturing their products will try to visit an international fair and will ask their personal relations how to find a manufacturing plant for their shoes. But nowadays, we believe that online is also a very strong platform to do that. So industrial companies have to have a presence online. And FindSourcing, that Elias is the promoter, can help some of our companies. And that's why we want to have your opinion about our companies and how we can help them to develop themselves. So the first speaker for us, it's Elias. Elias, we'll have a short presentation for you. And we also want to have from your opinions about how we can improve. After that, we'll have Albin Johansson. Albin is CEO of Arigato, which is a Swedish brand. Nowadays, mainly manufactured in Portugal. And it's clearly one of the targets for our industrial companies to sell abroad. So his opinion about how we should position ourselves can be very interesting. So I will first start to ask Elias, who has a short presentation for us, to run his presentation. And after that, I will pass the word to Albin.
Perfect. Do you see my screen firstly?
Yes, we hear you.
And you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So thank you very much, Joao, for inviting me to this seminar. It's a big pleasure. We have been in contact since a while back, and we are very excited to see how we can support Portuguese companies, but also companies all over the world to promote themselves more and to be able to find footwear buyers in a more structured way, let's say. So my background is I was working with H&M for about 8 years in different parts of the world with footwear all the time. I was based in Shanghai for 3 years, working with footwear production in China, India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, etc. And the later years at H&M, I was managing the supply chain for footwear bags and belts of the H&M group in Europe. So a lot of footwear being produced in Portugal and Spain, basically, and then some bags and belts being produced in Italy, Turkey, and Sweden. And during that time, it became apparent how challenging it can be to find manufacturers, and that started the idea of FindSourcing, which is basically a digital platform to make that connection and discovery process more smooth and easy. Because it all starts with this. It all starts with the product, which is one of the most important assets for a fashion company. Still, the journey for a buyer is normally something like this, that you start with the design, or that's one part that is fun, or how you have a new idea for how you should promote the product, or you have an idea exactly for how you should sell the product. But normally, production is actually one of the later things that you start to think about for how that is, how you're going to do that, basically. Maybe one of the least sexy areas in a sense. And that is why it's also so interesting, because looking into the flow, where you start with the design and then you source and produce your design, you ship it, you promote it, and you sell it. There's basically top of mind solutions for all different aspects. Many are digital, some are still analog. I mean, shipping requires logistics. But looking into the sourcing and production scene, there's very few players that can satisfy needs from the bit wider audience. Of course, there's Alibaba and so on, but they are focused on a certain niche in there and not suitable for all. So this was very interesting, I thought. And going back a bit here, but why are we sourcing in general? And Joao, if there's any questions, by the way, you can ask questions and put them in the chat window, and then Joao will take record of them and get back to those later. So you're most welcome to ask questions. Looking into why we're sourcing, well, it's a very changing landscape these days. Looking here to the left, you see different reasons why it's different from before from a retailer or buyer point of view, where it's basically retail has changed due to people are not buying things in store as much as they used to before. There's a big shift towards online. There's less brand loyalty, and there's more and a bigger appetite for newness among consumers. There's also smaller quantities in general. Brands tend to buy less and less, but maybe have more and more drops. That instead of seasonal models, it becomes more drop strategies. And there's also more new businesses. There's more direct-to-consumer brands than it's been earlier, cutting out middlemen, basically. And the trend towards shorter lead time is very apparent with on-demand production is something that we here at FindSourcing a lot about, consumers or buyers that want to buy on demand. Looking into how it was for Amazon, 1995, customers expected an order to be delivered within 9 days. Today, they're expecting it to be delivered the day after. So it's a big shift in how consumers behave. Then, of course, we have the manufacturer side of it, which is maybe not always adapted to these kind of changes, where the industry is more it is an industry in an industrial frame, where US manufacturers are heavily invested in machinery, in people and competence that you've mentioned with the structure that you're taking. And that is basically rewarding a more continuous production of the same or similar style. It has been at least a relatively traditional setup of sales, where fairs and agents have for many been the main sales channels, and planning and stability has been rewarded. So with direct consumer brands, for instance, wanting to cut out agents or cut out middlemen, it becomes a different kinds of sales process. So old manufacturers or manufacturers that have relied on agents being the sales channel might have realized that can be a little bit challenging these days. And then, of course, I mean, running a manufacturing unit, you need to be an engineer and really into the details. You need to have a technical expertise that requires a lot of focus. Also to focus that locally, which creates a kind of a local focus and sometimes a local mindset. So it's looking into what is asked from a buyer or from a consumer side has changed recently. It takes time normally to push that change through from a manufacturing point of view for different reasons. And that is why it's even more important to address this. From a buyer side, why you want to find a new manufacturer is that, well, it can be brand identity, that you want to have it made in a certain location or made in a certain way. It can be brand priorities are changing, that before it was price, you were sourcing from Asia. Now it's more important with lead time or quality and control, for instance. So then you start to source in Europe if you're a European-based brand instead. It can be supply performance. I think that's one of the key things today, that from a buyer side, it can be a scare, let's say, for bankruptcy. You don't really know the future of the suppliers, but also of how you're acting as a brand yourself. It can be on-time delivery challenges, quality issues, etc. It can be that communication is not working. Or it can be that you are, as a brand, developing new product types where you need to find a manufacturer that can handle that. Then there's geopolitical reasons, of course, for sourcing and sourcing needs. From FindSourcing side, we saw a big shift of brands that wanted to move from China to Vietnam, or from China to Europe, because of the how labor costs are changing, how currency is changing, or how trade wars is affecting the market. So in short, there's different ways to find the right factory, and it's relatively hard. Globally, there's about 75,000 different footwear manufacturers, and majority of them are not a good fit for price reasons, quality, brand identity, etc. So it's a lot about finding the right match. So from a buyer perspective, there's in the sourcing segment is how should we do it? What is the right approach? What is it that we're looking for, and where are we looking? This is like how it is done then in practice. This is a brand called Birdies that has as a business idea to offer very well price sensitive or a good value for money slipper or slide, and they just started asking all their the environment around them, do you know anyone who can produce this? And at the end they found a factory, but it was very based on luck actually. And we'll speak also to Albin later on how they did that. But that's actually how it's done, because manufacturers are normally found by chance, where a big majority is based on personal connections. Up to 65% is actually sourced based on, do you know anyone who can produce this? Asking a friend. About 30% of manufacturers are found on fairs, which is a relatively random way of finding manufacturers. Internet is used to a very small extent, but there is a golden opportunity and the market is shifting towards online sourcing. This is something that we have recognized with FindSourcing, and that is what we're delivering on. So basically, we are an online platform. We have about 1,818 now. This is a couple of days old. Manufacturers only for footwear on our platform. This is how it looks like. So we have a registry of manufacturers, weather-based. It's possible to search, filter, and connect directly with the manufacturer. Every supplier have a profile like this. This is Maresport, supplier based in Portugal, also part of Apicaps. Due to our collaboration with Apicaps, we know who's member there and are promoting that in certain ways. With contact information directly, so any buyer can go to findsourcing.com and then find manufacturers that is matching their criteria and then contact you as a manufacturer directly. We're also featuring a flow where buyers can submit what they're looking for. Like we're looking for a sneaker, 500 pairs leather based in, we want to have it produced in Spain or in Portugal. We source according to those criteria, basically get offers from manufacturers with price, lead time, other brands that you're working with, present that to the buyer, and then introduce the brand directly to that manufacturer that they're interested in. So it's kind of a direct connection to a buyer based on that they are already interested in your business, and you also know more or less what they're looking for. So it's quite a targeted lead, we're calling it. How, I know this is something that people ask us a lot, so I've included this slide here as well. Basically, manufacturers can register for free. There's no cost to register as a manufacturer, become visible in our database so that buyer can contact you directly. Buyers submit a request of what you're looking for. We're getting offers from relevant matching manufacturers. So if you can do cemented sneakers, but you cannot do vulcanized rubber boots, for instance, you will not have any buyers looking for vulcanized rubber boots with you. Buyers are then deciding, this is interesting, we connect you directly with those buyers, and there's no cost from a buyer side. From a supplier, you're paying 1 to 5% of the order value on such an introduction, which is basically done as a one-time flat fee together with introduction. That's our preferred way. So what we want to inspire here is transparency, so that buyers can select among different options, and which is basically rewarding good companies. Good suppliers will become more visible on our platform. We will rank them higher, and from a buyer point of view, you will be able to see who will be a good match with you. And from a supplier point of view, you will be able to see what kind of buyers is it that's out there looking for your kind of products. So what we are all about is to make the process more transparent, reward good buyers, and reward good manufacturers and suppliers. So this is what this seminar actually will be about. What is a good buyer? What is it that buyers want to see? We had another seminar about 2 weeks ago from a buying perspective on sourcing digitally. And this is what was among the most important things when sourcing online. The most important thing by far is just to have information available. So just that there is information about capabilities, about the MOQ, about what machinery you're having, about factory size. Then also to know, okay, well, are you part of BSCI, or what kind of standards are you working with? Do you work with anything? To be able to feel that you're having personal contact is also important. And of course, then relevant offers. From a supplier point of view, what we have seen, we have been working with about 200 different buyers, and we have more than 1,800 manufacturers on the platform. These are the 3 different things which are super important to deliver on if you want to be able to attract new buyers in a new landscape. You need to be targeted, you need to have a presence, and you need to mind your presentation. You need to think about how you're presenting yourself. With the target, it's basically just make sure to identify your target customer. Who, as a buyer, is it that you, as a manufacturer, would like to work with? And make sure to build a strategy based on that. You need to have thought about that in order to engineer the other parts in your customer procurement strategy in the right way. On the presentation side, one of the most important things is to be present. Basically, make sure that you're seen. Every customer is different, and depending on who you're looking to attract, you should maybe go to a fair, or maybe you should focus more on personal connections, understanding who are these people. Maybe you should be more present on LinkedIn, on Google, Facebook, Instagram, or blogs. It depends a lot what kind of customer that you're looking for, but make sure to have a strategy for that. Accessible and available means that don't use info at or Geral at email, which is checked like every second month. We know that you are losing business by doing it that way. Make it as easy as possible to connect with you and understand from a buyer side, who is it that I'm speaking to, who can I contact? Focus is another thing that we've seen to be part of the future here. You will not master everything you do, and you shouldn't. Generally, with competition, there will be more specialization. Whatever you do, make sure that your core is in focus all the time. And think like a startup. Do your math. What is the most efficient way for you to be attractive? Keep track of your customer acquisition cost and the customer lifetime value. Those are good terms to familiar yourself with and act on. So basically, is it worth for me as a manufacturer to go to a fair? What is my return on that investment versus what I otherwise could do with this money? And maybe it is, maybe it's not, but it's depending on the kind of buyers that you want to attract. The second part here, or the third part actually, after, you need to be present, but it's not enough to just be present. You need also to be present in the right way. So make it nice is one of the leading words here. We've seen so many times where information is not updated and relevant. If you're having information from 2017, your collection from 2017, basically when you made your website, it doesn't do anymore. It makes you look old and outdated. Anything older than 4 months is basically not relevant anymore. So keep on, have a strategy to make that updated and right. Do not think as well that price is the only thing that buyer is looking for. We see so many cases where a good presentation with a personal touch is much more important than price. And it's actually that feeling from a buyer perspective that they're speaking to someone who can adhere to their demands is worth a lot, basically. And the quicker your responses are in a structured way, the more likely you are to get business. We see that manufacturers who are replying within days and not weeks are having a big advantage online. Exceeding expectations, this is a general term really, but understand what your clients are really looking for. Is it payment terms to enable a good cash flow? Is it a transparent costing system? Is it sustainability practices, on-demand production, etc.? Make sure that you know what your target customers are looking for and deliver on that. And lastly, use shortcuts. There are plenty of shortcuts to take. Like, can someone manage your social media and digital presence if that's not your forte? Or do you actually know your market position by fact? You have a feeling maybe for how your products are priced, or how your lead time is, or how your minimums are compared to the market average, but do you know? And ask your customers and be critical towards yourself. Why are you working with us? Try to understand what makes you unique. So it's not, we're working with you because we can't find anyone else, because that will change. So what we have made and what we're happy to share with all of you in this seminar is a small guideline or a small checklist, basically, for how can you measure or how can you check at a very easy way how attractive you are from a buying point of view, with just on the focus, presence, and presentation part. There's of course many other things to this, a lot of soft factors, a lot of strategic things which is not included here. This is a short version that I just wanted to share with you. I'm happy to send this to you by email if you want to have this list, and you can send me an email and I'll pass it along. But basically, first of all, identify the target client segment. Who would you want to work with? Make sure to do that every year at least. Set a strategy for how to onboard that segment. Set up KPIs. Do you have, for instance, a KPI at the moment for how is your email response rate? Is it a day? Is it a week? I mean, make sure to track key metrics that will lead to customer success. I think keeping track of unit economics, what we spoke about before, the customer acquisition cost and customer lifetime value, is crucial today. Basically, the better you are on these things, the more expert you are in your own business and the more educated decisions you're taking, the more competitive you will be, the better cash flow you will have, the more return on the investment you will get as well. Then there are certain other things about presence. Have a homepage, make sure that you rank high on Google, make sure that phone, email, WhatsApp information or whatever it is available online. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, arrange that. Super easy, it builds a lot of confidence, it's free. Same with FindSourcing profile. Check your FindSourcing profile, make sure that that's updated. Have an easy channel for communication in English. And on presentation side, basically make sure that all of this is updated and fresh, that you have good pictures that are recent, that you have information about your company that is recent. All of this builds your brand and build your reputation. Of course, that's important parts. So this was kind of a crash course from FindSourcing and how we see how we see successful manufacturers, how they're acting in order to become more relevant, more attractive, and to have a more stable business setup for now, but also for the future. From FindSourcing side, of course, we can. We're only focusing on footwear. We're only focusing on sourcing and production management. If you feel that you don't master this today, we'd be happy to support you in whatever way that might be. So feel free to drop me an email on that. We see the future of sourcing. It is going to be digital. There's no question about that. It will be quicker, more efficient, and more accurate. It will be more data-driven. So instead of based on limitations that maybe buyers today can't reach so many manufacturers, it will be a more fact-based sourcing process. It will also be more transparent. Good suppliers, good buyers will be rewarded. And lastly, but not least, it will still be relational. Relations will be super important as always. It will. I'm not speaking about replacing any relations, but empowering them so that it will be more long-lasting, more easy to build and easy to maintain. So that's basically it from FindSourcing side. As said, my email is elias@findsourcing.com. You're most welcome to send me an email if you have any questions, or maybe I will ask them later. If you want a presentation, you can email me about that as well.
So yes, thank you
very much.
Thank you. During this interruption, I will try to ask people that is hearing us to introduce you to this function that you have on your screens. You can find a way to interact with us. There is a chat box, so you can go there and write something for us. or you can go to a question and answer box. So you have two different buttons for the chat and for question and answers. If you can write on question and answers any questions, so we can put them to the speakers in the question and answers time that we'll have after Albin, that will try to speak with us right now. Albin, I just want your comments about how we can improve from one side, and how do you see the importance of the digital world to source and find new manufacturers for your brand. That's the main challenging that we have for you. But please feel free to present yourself, because probably some of the audience here doesn't know your brand. But feel free, you have the stage now.
Hi, thank you very much for being a part of this. So I'm one of two founders of Arigato, a shoe brand that was launched back in 2014. So it's soon 6 years since our inception. And at the beginning and for a few years, we were only focusing on shoes. Now we're developing into other product categories, and we're also actually doing textile as well as accessories and some objects. Most of these are still produced in Portugal as well. From the beginning, the idea was to be a straight to or direct to consumer brand, meaning that we started with our website selling only online. Then after a few years, we also started with our own retail. And we also, since a few years back, working with wholesale. And we are having around 150 retailers worldwide. In Europe, we're working with most of the big ones, such as Selfridges, Harrods, Le Bon Marché, KaDeWe Group, Breuninger, Galeries Lafayette, La Rinascente, and so on and so forth.
So tell us, Albin, tell us the story. How did you find your first manufacturer when you started out, you and Max?
So we had no idea about production whatsoever, and therefore we had no idea about any factory. We started in Asia to search online through Google, obviously, to try to find different factories. We were in South Korea, we were in Vietnam, we were in China, Taiwan, and so on, but we couldn't find what we were looking for. So we sort of did the reverse Marco Polo trip online, moving throughout the Middle East, and then came to Europe and looked into Italy and Romania, Spain, France, and then we actually ended up in Portugal. So we, it took us, I think, 3, 4, 5 months to find someone, and I think we started to send 200 emails to different email addresses in Portugal. And we ended up getting one answer, and this guy told us that I don't want to work with you because you have worked with all our clients. And since this was the only one that had sort of answered us, we had to do everything to get him on board, which we ended up doing as well. So that was very lucky and fortunate.
Yeah, but that's 200 emails. And currently, how much are you producing? What is it? 4 years?
Yeah, 200 emails in one country, I should say. And so it was many more. The estimate before the COVID was to produce almost 350,000 shoes, all in Portugal this year.
Yeah, so there's not replying on emails can be,
can be costly.
Big candy there.
So in the beginning, you were struggling to find your manufacturing plan, but you were looking online. So nowadays, when you are looking for a new manufacturing plan, because I believe that you can be happy with your manufacturers, but you are also looking for new ones. What do you prefer, and what you are looking for new manufacturers? The designs that they are able to provide is something that is critical, or you are mainly focused on other competencies?
It's different. So until like maybe half a year or a year ago, it was a lot about, especially in the beginning for us, to look into the cash flow. Like who could help us being a growing company with cash flow things. So we rather looked into payment terms than maybe margin and so on. Then, of course, when we are now a different kind of company, it requires different, or we have a different overhead. Margin, as in prices, have been more and more important. And that's for regular, you know, leather shoes, sneakers with the flat sole, cemented construction. But now the fashion and the trend is taking different directions. And we are seeing a huge uplift for more sort of like sporty styles, which is more complex to do, more technical. So this is something that we're currently doing in Portugal, but we are struggling a lot to find suppliers that are able to keep up with this sort of like techniques that are needed. And I think the main reason for this is lack of investments into new machinery. So therefore, like today, 100% of our shoes are produced in Portugal, but we are starting to look into other countries as well for this reason. And I know we're doing samples in currently Vietnam and Romania.
I have another question for you here. It's related with your products. Your main offer until now is sneakers. You launched some products, related products with the same spirit, but you never gone to other kinds of shoes. It's on the brand entity that you'll be manufacturing, offering only sneakers, or you are considering going to other kind of shoes.
Absolutely. When we started, we did offer slippers, loafers, and espadrilles, but then we didn't think that that was in line with how the brand developed, but also how the market and how the trend developed. We are looking into different kinds of, you know, slides and winter boots, hiking boots, and so on. And who knows, maybe in a few years, you know, sneakers will not be the trend anymore, but the brand still needs to be there. The company still needs to be there. So we need to offer what the consumers want. So absolutely, we're looking at everything all the time.
I think it's really interesting what you said regarding the journey, how you first, I mean, finding a manufacturer was just finding anyone, and then how it was more turned towards cash flow, and now how it's more turned towards capability on pricing, but also on actual capability of being able to produce the shoe, how that kind of, how like a buying company, how that transitions through your development.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like you're onto something there, that what's crucial is that this is a partnership, and that's what the factories needs to understand, that you develop together, you work together. If one of the parts will be successful, the other part will be successful as well. And it's not just like sort of one placing order and the factory is delivering on this, and then they can do whatever they want, and the work is done when the goods are leaving the factory. That's like sort of when the work is actually starting towards the next order and so on. And for us, we would prefer to have production going on 52 weeks per year, which is not possible due to vacations and so on. But we have production going on 46 weeks a year in most of our factories.
That's an interesting thing for our factories, to have someone that places orders every week. So I understand that your delivering times is very short. I understand that probably Portugal is clearly competent for that kind of business model, because you won't find a lot of industries worldwide capable of delivering goods and adjust their manufacturing so fast as us. How is that important for your business model? That's the main reason for you to be in Portugal, or there are other reasons that keep you here, and that we should improve to bring brands as your brand to Portugal?
It's essential. It's you know, for us as a brand, maybe 15-20 years ago, the brand sort of owned the consumers. They told the consumers, this is the design, this is what's trendy, this is what you should buy. Now the ownership is in the hands of consumers. They tell the brands, this is what we want, and we need to listen. And therefore things goes much, much faster. And that's also why we as a brand are sort of like pushing and requesting our factories much more. That they need to be agile, they need to be quicker, and they need to be listen to different turnarounds and so on. Because if we do this together, the consumers will be happier, and therefore the orders will increase eventually.
Yeah, the success of both parties will be bigger. And
yeah.
I mean, I agree 100% that the change in market and consumer behaviors also emphasizes the need for buyers and manufacturers to form partnerships more, where since a manufacturer has a different kind of setup, which takes a bit more time to change, the decision to change needs to come earlier and be more firm, I think, and that needs to be done together with the brand to get that kind of confidence to dare to do all these changes, because changing generally sucks. Actually, no one wants to change, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
And you got to do that these days, I think, together with the brand.
And you need to, yeah, exactly. You need to understand that this is the new way of doing business. This is how it works. So everything how it used to be with maybe very good margins, you know exactly what the production was going to be, and so for X amount of weeks or months going forward, that's history. That's not how it's going to work anymore. And a really good example here of how we want to work is last week. We had this sort of like drop of the week model. So every week we launch at least one new product, and we had a huge success. And then we saw on Friday, which was a good Friday, but we sold a record almost, one of the best days in our history, and a product that was launched on Wednesday got sold out on Friday. And then we were instantly in contact with the factory. They could confirm that, okay, we have some materials, we can produce another 50 styles. And on Saturday said, okay, produce it and send it already this week. And I think on Tuesday, the first day at work, they got orders of another 1,500 quantity of just those two articles that sold very well throughout the weekend that we already been in touch with. And if they can supply us this within 1-2 weeks, then we can start to sell again, and then we can like just keep on pushing orders. So it's like, even in these times, if you're agile and you're fast, you can still make business and therefore money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a topic that raised me something, is the importance of the consumer in this evolution of the products. It takes me to another question that was put in here. So you are always reading the consumer. How do you do that? What are the means that we will have to understand what is happening? Because for our companies, the mainly way they do that is by going to international fairs or to see what is being sold in shops. But you being online, you have other means to understand the consumer. What are other means, and what are the way you do that? And that is related also with the importance of the manufacturing, because it's mainly you and your team and your creative designer that design the products, or you design it closed with the engineer department that probably manufacturers have here in Portugal. What are the importance of one and the other? It's
not much engineering going on here, to tell you that. It's very designer and consumer driven. And back to your statement there, you're saying like, yeah, us manufacturers are going to fairs. How many consumers do you meet at these fairs?
None. We mainly meet business clients.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you're trying to spot a trend. I don't think that's possible. We have never been on a single fair, neither to find like what the consumer wants, nor to find a single wholesale account or a factory. Like, we had to do these 200 emails in Portugal, but ever since that, we have never needed to do anything. The factories are finding us now. And as well as most of our retail partners are doing the same, because they see that if we have the consumers on our side, if we have a dialogue with the consumers, if we can try to see what they want, everything else would come as well, because there is a demand for the product, so to say.
But for do that, you are mainly online on social networks, you are announcing your brand on magazines. What are the most important things for you to understand the consumers? You are mainly to see what people have in their feet. What are those things?
Yeah, but it starts with the mindset of thinking that you're always behind. You're not forward, and you're always wrong in a sense, and the consumer is right, and the consumers will change. So tomorrow you have to keep up with this. You have to give them something new to try to sort of like keep the same pace. That I think is the number one, the mentality, and not only sit in your corner and think that, oh, I made a good product a year ago or 2 years ago. It's like you're never better than the last sell, so to say. And online is a very good tool in the sense that trends are going so fast, and you can keep up with the speed and what is happening all over the world. But it also, of course, takes a lot of time, because you need to spend a lot of time where the consumers are, and they are everywhere. Instagram is just one platform out of many. You know, you need to look at forums, you need to look at digital newspapers, other social medias, and so on and so forth.
And I mean, I also know Arigato since you started, basically, and you're also very active. I see a lot of questions in the chat about how would you communicate with the consumers, but you're also creating events together with consumers. You're creating parties, you're creating capsule collections that are launched in certain ways at festivals, etc. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that you're also creating an arena together with the consumers for where you're interacting, but it requires a lot of focus. Same as, or go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of work. But as you're saying, like Arigato has never been only a product brand. We're as much marketing driven. And last year we did have 59 events, everything from like a smaller event in one of our stores to, as you mentioned, Elias, a huge festival in Copenhagen. And in addition to that, we did open up 5 stores in 12 months. And we did have several pop-ups. I think in only Selfridges, we had 3 pop-ups within 3 or 4 months. And that's just one out of several other stores as well. So we think that's crucial today, that, you know, you need to be top of mind in the mindset of the consumers, because if you are not that, they will for sure choose another brand to purchase a product from.
Elias, I have here 1 or 2 questions for you. One of the things is about your business model. You said that the platform is free for retailers and both for brands. So what are your business models? How do you make money? And the other thing is about the criteria that you have to list companies. So we believe that for you to organize the companies in your platform, you have some kind of criteria to list them. They are not just listed by alphabetical order. What kind of criteria do you have and information to prioritize the companies that you offer to a specific retailer or client or brand that appears on your website? And the other thing about...
Let me start there, Joe. You're asking too many things at a time. You can come back with the last question, but here, just with how we are onboarding manufacturers, every manufacturer making shoes is welcome on FindSourcing. That's the criteria, basically. We do have tier 1 manufacturers and tier 2 manufacturers. So there's no cost for a supplier to sign up. But we want to reward the good ones. So basically the ones which are more relevant, that's providing more information or better pictures or a full set of information. Let's say they will rank higher. Manufacturers who are leaving replies to brands by this when they're submitting requests, they will also rank higher. It's not super visible at the platform at the moment, but we have an algorithm to calculate that background-wise. Also being part of Appycaps, for instance, makes you rank higher as a manufacturer to become more visible, because we believe that that's a kind of a seal of approval. On the how do we make money? Yeah, it's free for manufacturers to sign up. It's free for buyers to use. Buyers, there's never any fee anywhere. And for manufacturers, we only charge that fee on an introduction to a buyer that has submitted a request. If a buyer goes directly to a manufacturer by search and filter in our database, then that communication goes directly, nothing to us. If we're making that introduction to a buyer that's interested in a certain manufacturer based on the offer. We already know that this is interest from both parties. We consider that as highly value added, and we make that introduction where we charge the manufacturer.
Albin, I just have one question that it can be for you, but also for Elias. What are the single thing that the Portuguese footwear industry should improve in the short term to make it more competitive?
Stop thinking there is one way of getting better. Everything needs to be improved. So it's and that's the case for everyone, you know. So it's not one thing that you or us should improve here.
Okay, but there are several things. Can you list 2, 3 that you consider important?
Yeah, but maybe be more open-minded again, you know, that it's been working the same way for a long time and it probably worked very well, but it's not the case today. And it needs to be more agile, it needs to be more flexible, and it needs to be this partnership moving forward. And it's like so many hard discussions such as, you know, margin, cash flow, lead times, risk, and so on. They are all super important, but they can also be moved back and forward or back and forth at different times. So maybe at one part of the year or within the season, speed is very important. Then they can make more money if they listen more and give this speed. Whereas at another time where maybe like the orders are low, they can give a very good price, but the lead time is not as good, for instance. So be this flexible and be like use the business model. And I think like invest in the machinery is also very important, to not only like think about the classical leather shoes, because it's going more sporty, it's going more textile wise and so on, and different soles. So you don't want to see clients such as ourselves going to different countries just because you are not able to keep up with the technique. You need to invest in yourself, and it costs money to be good. And I would also say another thing that I have started to think about lately is the factories that are having their own brands. I do understand the thoughts and reasons behind this. And maybe like in the past, they could go to Mikam or something and start to sell these brands and take it in the low production periods. But the thing is today, if they are not like good in doing brands, they will steal designs and they will have focus in other ways. And since sort of like the trends and online is so global, you cannot hide a brand anymore. You cannot hide a product. I would rather say then focus on one thing, which is either make a brand or make a very good production facility and make sure that you will have partners for the next 3, 5, 10 years or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there regarding, sorry, Joao?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there regarding focus is super important, becoming even more relevant as the business develops and the footwear and fashion industry is proceeding forward. From our side, what we see is that the footwear industry in general, it's very traditional. It's been here for a very long time, and it will continue to be a relevant business for extremely long time in the future as well. But there's also a sense of we have been doing it like this before. It should work in the future as well. I think that mindset, there's a big strength in tradition and being true to that. But it's also a big need to challenge the old truths, especially in the footwear industry, where there's so rapid change now, and a lot of people it will come by surprise, which is not a good thing. So better to start questioning your ways of doing things now rather than later, and take those fights with the management or with yourself or whatever it might be, that what we did 1 year ago, question that. See if that's really the way to do it to attract the clients that you want to have.
Yeah, and also I think that a lot of different producers and so on, I think it's good to start to work with FindSourcing. But if you don't think like, okay, we don't need this platform, still take the opportunity to talk with someone as Elias, which is having contacts all over the world, and is like talking with both sides, because he stands for something that is crucial, and that's change. And even though maybe FindSourcing might not be like the leader, they will still like, it's something that you need to embrace, and you will need to keep up with this.
Yeah.
Really,
so just a correction there, Albin, we will be the leader.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. But we have a lot of interesting ideas. We see a lot of interesting trends on the buying side, on the supplier side. We do collect a lot of data. We will now, next week, implement that every manufacturer that is submitting an offer to a request, they will also receive feedback back on how are they on price compared to the market average, basically on others submitting offers on the same product. How is that on lead time, on sample lead time, etc. So they will get a benchmark to improve upon for themselves. So we want to drive that change. So we want to be a good business partner for suppliers and manufacturers globally.
I have a final comment and question for both of you. During this 1 hour, we are mainly avoiding the topic of the moment, that is COVID, that is everyone is speaking about coronavirus right now, is changing our business. We have made a study worldwide with a panel of specialists that points out that the consumer of footwear will drop by 22.5% this year. So it's an important and an historical drop. Nothing has happened in the long term that is a drop of this size. So it's something that is very singular. We have someone here saying that the way the world is changing, and on top of that, brands are trying to bring manufacturers closer to them, so trying to source closer to the market, which will be an opportunity for Portugal. We have in APICAPS our doubts about that, if that is a huge movement, because for us, any change like this will be catastrophic for a majority of companies. But I just have 5 minutes for you to bring your opinions as players in the footwear business of what's happening, and how do you think that brands and manufacturing should change their strategies? Elias, can you start, as you was the first?
Yeah, I think that, this is something unprecedented. It's an extremely big change, a quick drop, and a lot of companies will have significant challenges to ride this out. But the companies the companies who manage to go out of this or come out of this will come out stronger than before. There will be a consolidation in the market, and being present, being available, and being possible to find as a manufacturer will bring plenty of opportunities, I'm sure, when this has passed, because there will always be footwear needed to be produced. There would always be consumers that want the new thing. So I'm sure that it's a big challenge at the moment. It will be for all the good companies, all the companies that are embracing change and have a strategy and possibility to manage this, will only come out stronger on the other side. And there, if speaking just Portugal, I think Portugal has a golden opportunity to be visible, to be open, and to be inviting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think one thing this whole sort of pandemic is showing us is how connected we are. We are all very vulnerable. So if like one part of the industry is getting hit, the whole value chain is getting hit, from like the department stores in the US to sort of like the guys making rubber in Korea, and everyone in between as well. So it's not possible to sit in a corner and say like, I take an order and I sell, and it's about it. Moreover, I think that speed is going to be important, like speed in terms of course, lead times, but also how brands will think about their inventory and overstock, and possibly also like outlets and so on. So there might be a decrease in the total production values because of risk management, but we'll see how that will. I do hope that in terms of sustainability, this will increase the whole thinking about it. but that's something that we will have to see.
Okay. Thank you for your time. We have been 1 hour here speaking about how we can help our companies. We are here to have new ideas. We still have more than 100 people listening to us. So let's start by thanking them to hear us, and I hope it may be helpful to everyone that is hearing us. I think that you should have this initiative can be interesting for you. We are coming here 1 week from now with another webinar presenting business to consumer and business to business platform focused on shoes. We want shoes in a partnership with our Exports Trade Commission, ICEP. So I hope everyone can join again 1 week from now. Thank you all, and hope to see you soon, and hope to do the right business and enjoy and make profits with all the footwear business, and keep health, because it's also important during these days. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Joao. If anyone has any question or want the slide deck I shared, you can email me at Elias@FindSourcing.
We record the webinar, and the participants will get a video with it, and we can, if Elias can allow us, we also can share the PDF with the PowerPoint.
Yep, okay. Thank you very much, Joao. Great arrangement.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.